What is going on, folks? It is Steiner here with another episode of Secondhand Talent. Thank you, as always, to Luke Chu for the desk candy, and thank you to Mark Spusta for the art, and thank you, as always, to Tiny Steiner, my tiny co-host. But most importantly, thank you to Chris of Gilfalo Art Design. I'm doing this because I don't know what side of the screen he's going to be on in the final edit. But Chris, welcome to the show.
What's up, Steiner? Thanks for having me.
Well, it is a pleasure to have you on. I know that this has been a long time in the making, and I'm glad that we're finally able to make it happen. For folks who are unaware, I first became acquainted with Chris when I was working with Bodhicitta when they were doing some shows at the Alpine Valley Resort while Fish was playing there in 2024. And Chris did the poster for that run, and it sold out, I believe. And
yeah, it did.
There were, I remember Saturday during the day, there was a whole line of people like asking for the band to sign it. It was really great to see. And it was really awesome getting a local printmaker to be able to participate in the event and be a part of it. And that's really, I think, gonna be the heart and soul of what we talk about here today is, the emphasis on bringing in, because really, with Secondhand Talent, the rising tide lifts all ships. We lift each other up, and bringing the people we know into the fold who do good work. That's what this is all about. But before we get into all that, just like everyone else, got to ask you, the first time that you had heard the term secondhand talent, not having heard it before, what came to mind?
What came to mind? Something cool that I wanted to be part of, something that was local. I first was introduced to it, obviously through Bodhicitta, and then watching and going down a long line of watching videos via YouTube and Instagram and all sorts of stuff, and just kind of falling in love with it. So I was super stoked when we finally got to connect at the Alpine, and right after Alpine, and talked about it. And now finally, almost a year later, year and a half later, I'm finally here with you after our paths kind of finally brought himself together.
For our readers and listeners, please go on YouTube and look at the video, because I was kind of sitting there with kind of like a little slack-jawed expression on my face, because my usual response to whatever the answer is of that question, and it is going to be the same response, but there is an addendum. The response is, I never get the same answer twice. What I have not heard before, genuinely, is that someone checked out the show that much, and then I had no idea.
Yeah.
It's one of the great joys of doing what I do is that when I do hear from people that they find meaning in one of the interviews, or they've enjoyed it, or it's enriched their lives somehow, or they take heed and say thank you to the folks who are, the actual secondhand talent at shows. I'm a bit taken aback. I mean, I'm kind of interested to see your reaction. You don't know this at the time. I mean, it's aired by now, but our 100th episode is what we kicked off this season with, and we had the artist of this shirt, Mark Spusta,
as great guy,
as our 100th guest. And I mean, how about that?
Yeah, amazing.
Of all things to happen.
I really liked the Joe Marcenek interview you did. He's a super genuinely nice guy, and so in fact, I watched it again today through the Instagram channel, and man, some really cool people that you've had on, and so I feel honored to be here. It's an amazing thing. So
Well, I appreciate. I'm laughing because I don't really know how to respond. I appreciate that so much. I think what you do is really exceptional. I mean, you don't do just any kind of printing. You do a really specific kind of printing. And
Mhm.
we actually had our first line of cut artist on the show last season, Isadora Bullock. Um, and it's a really unique process. And one thing that I've learned in throughout the span of this show so far is that no matter who I interview, no matter what capacity they work in, no two people reach that destination the same way. So I'm extraordinarily curious. I do know that Gilfalo began in 2017, but before that, talk to us a little bit about what your history was with live music leading up to it, with art, with printmaking in general, and kind of how it all came to a head then about 8, 9, maybe 9 years ago from the time of this
Uh,
airing.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, my music history goes back a lot of ways. I saw my first show when I was about 9 or 10. I saw Bachman Turner Overdrive at the Marinette County Fair.
That was one of my first concerts.
See?
Not at the same place, but yes,
Yeah,
BTO, yes.
yeah, yeah. My aunt took me to the show,
My
and
dad took me.
I didn't know much about it. I mean, I was young, I was there mainly just to ride the Ferris wheel, and I got kind of sucked into going to the show, and they're drinking beers, and I'm sure they were smoking some. I didn't know back then, and so I just kind of fell in love with music from that start. And then I consider it my first real concert that I went to was Bruce Hornsby on the Range, and it would have been about 1984 or so at Summerfest. And it was my first time going to Summerfest by myself. A couple of my friends and I went down there, and I was like 12 years old or so, and just kind of was like, "Wow, this is incredible!" And went back the next night, saw In Excess, and it was just an awesome experience. And I've been going, I mean, for 30 some odd years now to Summerfest every year to check out so many different bands. I love live music. It's been part of my life since I was a kid, and I continue to be on it every single day now.
For those of you who are reading, listening, or viewing from outside of the Midwest, Summerfest is a weeks, months long spanning music festival that takes place every year in Milwaukee, and it features some of the greatest bands from across the nation that you have and had never have heard of, and it is always a treat. Last time I was there, I think, was in 2019. My cousin's former guests and friends of the show as well, the Moon City Masters, opened up for, I think, when Turquoise was still together. I think it was Turquoise.
Mm.
And then, and they were playing the talking headset with Adrian Ballou and,
Cool.
I think it was that set, and they were opening, and they actually crashed at my place, and we went to Summerfest together. But it's awesome that we've got a lot of, and that really brings us back to like the local aspect of it. It's real. Like I'm curious, when was your first time going to Alpine?
My first Alpine show was 1987/88. I don't remember. It was for the Monsters of Rock festival, and it was Metallica, um, Dokken, Kingdom Come, the Scorpions, and Van Halen. And I remember I know, right? I know. And then
For
like,
$12.
yeah, yeah, it was probably like, I don't know, I had a girlfriend take me, so it was probably like it was free for me. But um, I think yeah, that was my first show at Alpine, and then shortly after that, a couple months later, I saw Iron Maiden, and it was supposed to be Guns N' Roses with them. It had been like '88 or so, and Guns N' Roses canceled, and Megadeth came, and I had a friend in high school that was just like obsessed and still is obsessed with Iron Maiden. Wore an Iron Maiden or a Megadeth shirt every day to high school, no matter what. It was, and he invited me to the show. He's like, "You want to go?" I'm like, "Ah." So we sat down in the reserves, and it was so loud, and no earplugs. I was like, "What the hell?" And so we had to go all the way back in the grass because it was just so damn loud. But that was my big understanding of Alpine Valley, and then from there it's just been shows upon shows upon shows
I
over
mean,
the years.
the fabric of that place. I mean, my first Fish shows were there, as were my first concerts ever, in June of 2009.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's lore. There's lore to them their grounds. And lots happened there over
Oh
the
yeah.
decades, allegedly. Um it's kind of wild that that's the place that brought us together. What is it? When did you start? Clearly going to concerts from a young age, but when did you start your artistic journey? Like as far as
As a kid, I remember I must have been about 10 or 11, and I just had gotten like a few records. My first record I ever got as a gift was Twisted Sister's Stay Hungry album. And and God knows why my sister picked that album. I had no clue, but I fell in love with it. And then I went out and bought Led Zeppelin 2. Me and my buddies split it, $3 a piece. We bought it at the local Kmart, went home, and we put it on the record player at his parents' house, and we're just blown away, by Jimmy Page. I mean, just everybody was just, it was such a great experience. Um, and so I started just really like falling more and more in love with music like that. And I don't know, just kind of going like that. And then it just kind of started going to live shows, and it just kind of, I mean, like I remember seeing Fish for my first time was in '03. Um, just good times, man. Good times.
when did the printmaking and designing begin?
Um, like 2017.
So
Like I've
this
always been,
really was a later phase for you, that more
yeah, I've
so
always
than
been,
a beginner type thing.
yeah, I remember, drawing a lot as a kid. I remember drawing my first scorpions. Someone had given me like a scorpions tape or something like that, and I was like, oh man, this is incredible. And I drew like some scorpions out on a piece of paper and hung it on my bedroom wall, and just kind of always fell in love with drawing and doodling and just having a good time with that. And um, you know, the printmaking actually started. My wife and I were living up in the Poconos up in northern Pennsylvania. We were we were studying at a yoga ashram for a couple years, and in 2017 we had gotten like 48 inches of snow in 2 days. And my wife was like, what do you want to do? Because and everything, you can't get into town, you can't do nothing. Everything is shut down. Generators on.
You can barely know.
Yeah, it was a lot of snow. you
Nope,
know,
got nothing.
I got so what a reason why it happened was like a couple years prior to that, I had made friends with Jim Pollock through a mutual friend of mine, and he had taken me down to the studio down in Chicago to see Jim one day, and just kind of hung out with him. He was doing some printing and just got to know him. And I'd been listening to Fish for many years prior to that. Um, and after Jim's visit, I was like, you know what? I want to try block printing. So I went out and bought like these little 4x5 blocks, and I bought some carving tools, and they sat in a drawer. Sat in a drawer for 7 years. Life was busy. Didn't do crap. I was doing other stuff, working.
Life do be life, and
Yeah, and then so we got the snow, and my wife Danny was like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I'm like, I don't know. She's like, "You should go grab those blocks and the carving tools and carve something." And I'm like, "All right, that sounds fun. What the heck? Why not?" So I did, and here's the block that I carved. The small little Volkswagen bus.
Ah, oh
And
yeah, there it is. Yeah, I see the
yeah,
relief. Yeah.
yeah, I still
Oh
print
yeah.
with it to this day.
How
And
about that?
so I carved this and I printed it and I printed like, I don't know, 10 of them or something like that.
And what's the
And
printing process for something like that, like for our
something like that.
listeners, readers, and audiences who
Yeah,
aren't
of course.
aware? Like,
Draw out the Volkswagen bus on a block
and what
on a
are you
piece of linoleum
using? And what are you using to draw
pencil.
that? Oh, an
Yep,
actual
just a
pencil.
pencil. Yeah,
Okay.
right here. So just a pencil, draw it on there, and then my carving tools. I use a flex cut palm tool. They're my favorite brand. I hands down. I started with Speedball for a while, and then moved on to these. These are a little bit higher quality, nicer. They fit my in my hand, in the palm of my hand, a lot better. And you start carving it down, just whittling it away like if I was to carve it down like this. It's kind of hard to see, but um, until it's ready to go. And then I would take a small little brayer, which almost kind of looks like a paint roller for the most part, and put some ink down and roll it across it like this. And then take a piece of paper and I would take a spoon, either a wooden spoon or a metal spoon, once the paper's on here, and then I would just like rub the spoon on the back of the paper, which then would imprint the image that's on the block onto the paper and peel it off and it's there. Old school.
Where's my Staples button? Um, that's that. Okay, wait. Now I'm assuming here, but correct me if I'm wrong. There's got to be a specific kind of ink, that you're using to not stain the wood permanently, or a cleaner, and then also a paper that's meant to absorb that ink under, let's say, under maximum pressure.
Yeah, I mean, paper is paper. It's all porous, right? And so you could use any type of paper that you really, really wanted to. It's going to matter on how much of a pressure you put on it. When
Interesting.
yeah, they call it burnishing. So you're
Does it
burnishing the,
matter? Does it matter as well the volume of ink that you use, or
yeah.
is it just about the pressure?
No, it's about the ink and everything. There's multiple inks out there. I started off with a water soluble ink, made by Speedball. It's a fairly inexpensive ink. But when I first started, it was like, well, I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of money on some really high quality stuff if I don't like it. And so I use that, and just a matter of how heavy or how thin you can roll it on the block, and how much pressure you put on it with your spoon. And eventually over till I bought my big press. I mean, I did the spoon tactic for 4 years or so. Everything that I did from 2017 to 2021, I used a piece of paper and a spoon, and I burnished every single thing I did. So every one of my beginning of my fish prints that I did for fan art was all done that way.
You
And I think
s-
I started.
you
Yeah.
spooned your way through the first 4 years of your career. That's
Yeah.
the
Hey man, my wife will tell you I'm a good spooner. So yeah, I mean that's how I started. And just kind of worked my way, just designing and
that's no.
drawing and
Let's pause on that because,
yeah.
like, okay, so even if you're making limited runs, right, and
Mhm.
you're not pressing that many times, and even if you're using monotones when you're only doing one ink per print, you're still carving a different design for each print, and
Correct.
sometimes multiple layers that you're then pressing on over each other. So, like, talk about just a little bit, how much time does it take to carve that block that you just showed us?
I mean, back then it took me probably 2.5 to 3 hours to carve this because I was super careful and was really starting to learn. Now, I mean, I could carve this block in 8, 10 minutes. It's it's real quick. But I don't carve stuff like this anymore. I carve 12 by 18 pieces of linoleum, much like here's one right here that I'm working on right now. It's kind of hard to see because it's tinted like a pink because I laid down a color, but um
Is that a
it's for
rose imprinted on it?
yeah, it's for the Greendale High School. It's a local high school here in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Their their marching band is going to play at the Rose Bowl on the
Oh,
1st of
nice.
January. And so I was commissioned by someone here in Milwaukee to do two concert prints for that, this being one of them. And then I've already finished up another one. It's on the drying rack right now. Um, so this is the size that I do now, just,
So,
large scale.
talk a little bit about the difference between carving wood and linoleum.
I mean, it's the same thing for the most part. I don't really carve wood. I have once. Um, I had a hard time with it because you really have to pay more attention to the way the grain of the wood is. And so like
Um,
if you're carve it the wrong way, you could take out a large chunk of wood and that could be a big mistake. So I find carving linoleum much easier. Um, it's easier on my wrist. It's easier on the tools. But then I can't really speak too much about carving wood because I've only done it once. I tried carving a piece, so I can't really speak, what the main differences is. I just know that, it is what it is.
I mean,
It is what it ain't.
well, let me ask you this. So, I mean, it's quite impressive to me, at least, the uneducated interviewer, that that block that you carved all those years ago, you're still pressing with. How
hmm
many times can you press a piece of linoleum with the same design without having to make adjustments?
I mean, I think with something small like this and your hand burnishing it, I mean, 10,000, 20,000 times. I mean, it's the amount of pressure that you're
Oh,
putting on it.
okay, yeah, all right,
You
yeah.
know?
Like I said, uneducated interviewer
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Like I'm
I mean, who
learning.
knows? I mean,
I'm
I
learning
guess,
with the audience. That's what
yeah.
we're.
I would guess, Steiner, that it would probably, you know, as many times as you want, really, before it starts to break down. I don't know. I've never had a block break down on me, and I probably printed this 500 times, maybe 750 times. I put it on greeting cards now that I sell in local shops here in Milwaukee. Um, and
That's
so,
awesome. I
and I
mean,
don't,
you
everything is
know,
still done on this one with a spoon. So when I'm making a card, I'm actually using a spoon still with this one. Unlike the big blocks that you see here go on my press.
that's it reminds me of there's a fruit called the etrog or the citron. And what's incredible about it is that it never loses its scent. And I have one with me that I got from a tree when it was growing, and it still has its scent. It doesn't. It
Oh,
almost like
crazy.
it doesn't like rot or putrefy. It just petrifies and just remains. It's an incredible. It's an incredible fruit, and the fact that that block of wood has lasted over 8 years and is
Yeah.
still, is still in operation as we speak. I mean, speaks to, I think, the testament of nature. But moving on to machinery, what was it that prompted you to get a press? Like, when did you decide that, all right, we're at the point where we need to scale up to get
Yeah,
something that's a bigger deal? Because
for sure.
that's an investment.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Well,
Especially, yeah.
so how it started was that when we were living in Pennsylvania, I had a friend who was a ceramic artist, and I went over to pick up some. She had made some mugs for me, and I was in her studio, and I looked over, and I'm like, "That looks like a press over there." It looked like an etching press, and I was like, "What is that?" And she's like, "Oh, it's called a slab roller." And what it does is it takes clay and it smushes, basically makes the clay thinner, so they can make little slabs of it for whatever they're using it for. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. She's like, it would totally work for a press. Do you want to come over sometime and use it? And I'm like, well, I print early in the morning sometimes, like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm up. I'm an early riser. And she's like, well, why don't you just take it? Just take it up to your house. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah. She's like, you can use it for free. All I ask is that you do a commission print for me. And I'm like, cool. She's like, I want a commission print of my mother. And
Oh,
so I did a print of her mother from like the 50s. Yeah, she had a picture there, made it look just like the picture. It was awesome. And then, fast forward like half a year, something like that later, my wife and I were getting ready to move back from Pennsylvania to Wisconsin. Um, and I told my friend Ellen, I'm like, hey, I'm getting ready to leave. I'm going to give you the press back. She's like, absolutely not, Chris. That press is you now. Just have it. And so it was an honor to, take, yeah, take something like that home with me. That one artist shared their stuff with me. And so now, so I used that press for about a year and a half or so. And then shortly after that, we had moved out of the house that we had rented when we moved back to Milwaukee. And we had moved into like a studio 1 bedroom condo. And there was no way that I was going to be able to print in there with this press. It was too big. And so I bought a different press that was smaller, um, and then also rented the studio that you see me in right now. Um, and I started working that. It's called an etching press. So for a couple years, I used that. I thought, you know what, I really want to invest in making a higher quality print. I'm sick of doing this with a spoon on the back of a piece of paper. I want to do a little bit larger scale. Um, and so that the etching press, I went out and purchased it. Was a big purchase for me at that time. And and I still have it. I call it Dorothy after my mom. Um,
that's one of those things where it's a huge investment, but it's an investment in yourself, right?
for
So
sure it
you're
is.
you're
Yep.
you're investing in your own belief that what you're creating is positive and that a net positive will come of it. And then second of all, you're making an investment that will, if the former is true, pay for itself ultimately in a certain
Hmm.
aspect because as you said, you're still using it today. You know, I mean, when you make that level of investment, you're getting quality, right?
Correct.
And that's one of those things that money can buy. And there's certain things that are just worth investing in. I mean, and if you're gonna be, I was gonna ask, and I'm glad I didn't have to that whether or not you got rid of the original press.
Yeah, I got rid of the slab roller. It went to a ceramist in Rockford, Illinois.
See, one of the messages of the show is that the love of live music did not start with us, and it's our duty to pass it on to the next generation. And I was thinking about it when you said it earlier, and now that you say that, it makes it even better. I love the fact that it went from artist to artist to artist, and that
Hmm.
it's just continuing along on this chain of like, it's like, you know what? There's no point in hoarding this. Let's get this out to another generation of folks who are going to use it to create art and learn the craft and let that take, continue on its own journey and I'll go on mine. Like, that's a really honorable thing. And it's really awesome and a great reminder that, we should pay it forward and that what we
Always.
get is temporary and we should pass it on.
Yeah, that's one of the things like um, the etching press Dorothy that I have. I'll have other local artists here in Milwaukee that do block printing. They will come and use it. I've had people come to um, print Christmas cards on it, or art prints or whatever. Like one of the things here that I do, not every month, but probably every other month, I teach a class, and I'll have four people come in, and they'll get to use that press. Um, and it shows, a little bit about how mechanics work, number one. Um, so I'm not teaching them to do a spoon, because that's that's tough to do after a while. It can take
That would
a
be
wear.
such a great prank, though, if you got someone to pay for a master class on printing and you showed up and there's just a dude with a fucking wooden block and a spoon and a piece of paper being like, get ready, bitches.
Yeah.
We're fucking
Yeah.
spooning tonight.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, it's cool about passing on, like you said, passing on the music. I'm passing on what the skills and what I've learned over the years. Just like other people, like I can't tell you how many times, and I think everybody that's going to be listening to this or watching it, um, probably knows who AJ Maste is when it comes to linoleum block printing, I, or John Rose or Jim Pollock. There's not one time in my life that daily, weekly, that I can't just pick up my phone and send a message to one of them saying, "Hey, listen, I got a question. Help me with this. Can you help me with this?" And all three of them in a heartbeat will say, "Yep, try this, Chris. Try this." They've all been doing it for 30 years, and to have that type of reach, um, like you said, passing it on a generation to generation to generation. It's amazing to be able to reach out like that.
That's That's incredible. I mean, and I will say this, I'm not gonna name names because I'm gonna forget some and whatever, but there have been a few folks who have been guests on the show who have been uh, just constant sources of advice, enlightenment. If I need something, I know that they'll answer, and I I interviewed Al Grigo, the host of the Produce Stand podcast last season, and I had to actually ask him if this is a podcast because I don't really I don't know if it is. I've never watched a podcast or listened to one, and it seems to be the term that folks use. So okay, but
Mhm.
to me, it's a show, you know,
Yeah, for sure.
and the only reason that the show is here, over 100 episodes, is because of the advice that I've gotten from the folks who have been on the show. And it is extraordinarily encouraging to hear that you found that reciprocation in your field as well from folks who, as I hear their names, I think, oh, yep, I would be that's an interview right there. But like, also think of myself and just like the folks who have been on the show and the fact that I know that I can reach out to some of them anytime and they'll pick up, and I just feel, blessed in my own right. It's a really
Yeah,
wonderful thing.
I can't agree with you more. I mean, like humbled and blessed are two things. That's why I keep this little block here in the studio, because I walk in and I'm humbled by it. Like I started with this, and I'm doing, you know, these large scale concert posters for national touring bands. Like it's an amazing experience to be part of, to be able to put number one art in other people's homes, and the trust that musicians, bands, management companies, people that commission me just to do individual artwork for them, that they trust that and they want that, and that's a that's a humbling thing just alone. It's an amazing thing. So, um, I would never want to take this for granted. Um, and I appreciate every single day that I get to walk in the studio door and I get to create something.
If you take things for granted, it's a real hard life.
Yeah, that's not the way I want to rock.
So let's just roll on to the next topic, shall we? So currently you're doing a different style of printing. So you went from woodblock, which, happened once, and then the clay press with linoleum. What are you working with these days?
Yeah, I'm working with linoleum still, but now I'm working with a much bigger press. I'm working with a Vandercook Universal One. It's a fully automated press. Um, Works very similar to like what the etching press is, but instead of it, you actually drop the block down into a lowered bed, and a roller goes over the top of it, much like like Isadora uses, or Jim Pollock uses, or actually any of them, John Rose, AJ Mastey, they all have Vandercooks that they use. I was given an incredible opportunity about a year ago to purchase one from someone um, they had it at their basement in Muncie, Indiana, and I was turned onto it through a friend of mine, and that friend reached out to another friend and said, "Hey, there's a press for sale if you're interested." And I'm like, and that friend lived in New York, and I said, "I can't drive all the way to New York; it's going to be too costly." And he said, "No, it's in Muncie, Indiana." And so my wife and I took a road trip down, fell in love with it. In fact, it was at a place called Tribune Showprint. Tribune Showprint is the second oldest letterpress business in the United States, next to Hatch Showprint down in Nashville. It's been
Wow.
around. Yeah, I think it's been around since like I'm not going to know the exact date, but I'm guessing like right around like 1890s.
Well, how old is this machine? If you had
The
to,
machine I'm using for right now is from 1961. Do
wow.
you want to see it?
Yeah, let's take a look. Let's take a
All
little
right,
trip. For the
let's
folks who
take
are
it.
listening, you'll just have to listen to me talk while we take a trip over to go see it. But right
Yeah.
now, we're taking a walk over to go see the press. So this is why you should go ahead and watch the video on YouTube, folks, is so you can see things like this. Holy.
So there's a. I don't know if you can see it very well, but
No, I can
um,
see it. We can see it.
yeah, the presses. I was printing earlier, so it's kind of cleaned. It's kind of open right now. But basically, what happens is um, this big steel roller here will, when there's a block in the bed itself, hang on, when there's a block in there. So, for instance, let's put one in there. A block will be in there. I can't put it all the way in there because the bed's here, but a block will go in there. And when this machine goes back and forth over it and the piece of linoleum is on here, it'll imprint it into a piece of paper. I turn it on, I turn the machine on, but it's really kind of loud.
No, yeah,
And
no, no.
it'll really,
no.
really kind of mess things up. Um, but yeah, this is the press. It's an original 1961 Vandercook Universal One. Um, and it's fully automated. So now instead of, much like Dorothy is right here. You can kind of see Dorothy right there.
Mm.
Um,
Yep.
I used to have to turn this, and this bed, this composite bed here, goes back and forth, and you would hand crank it like this over
Oh,
and over and over again. Now with this one, I hit this button right here, and it prints it for me and comes right back, and then it prints it again and again and again as many times as I hit the button. Um, the speed and the quality is far far beyond none. It's just an incredible machine. I'm so lucky and so honored to have it. That I was given
what
the
does it
opportunity to.
take? What does
What do
it
you mean?
take to get a machine from 1961 automated like that?
Well, it was originally automated in 1961, so they stopped making these presses in 1970 or 71.
Oh,
And
so
so,
these are like you can't get these.
no, these are few and far between in the country. I mean, like some print shops will have them. I mean, I know that Isadora has them, and AJ has like four or five of them. Jim's got two or so, two or three of them, two of them, I think. Um, and yeah, they're few and far between for a small printmaker like myself to be able to have the ability to buy one. It took a lot. It took up, you talked earlier about investing in yourself and investing in your product, and much like you have, your microphone or your headphones or anything that you deal with. It's the same thing for a printmaker. I remember upgrading from using little cheap brayers to buying like a $400 brayer, and I was like, wow, it's a lot of money, and but it increased the feel and the look and the texture of my prints, and it
And
was a good investment for me.
you mentioned two things, but like also I think folks should consider. See Mark Spoose's interview. If you need to look any further, but there's also paper to think about. There's ink. There's so many
For
other
sure.
components in the process of creating a print. Beyond just the idea and the machine. There's so many elements of it that have to come together to work right in order to create the finished products like the ones you see on the wall behind you.
Yeah, I tried so many papers over the years, from cheap paper to, uber expensive paper. I found one that I really like. It's a Legion Stonehenge paper. I use a 90 pound um, archival paper. It's wonderful. It prints really well. It holds the ink well. I can build up the layers of ink on top of one another very, very well. Um, and it's a nice feel to it. It makes a nice concert poster, you know, as as you can see on the walls. And um, when you go to your favorite bands or something like that we're doing a poster for, you can feel it, you can touch it, you can be like, wow, it's a really nice paper.
And I actually have firsthand experience with this with the Bodhicitta print. It was
Yeah.
like it was really,
Oh,
really
for sure.
cool to see that in person and also, folks, check the description of the episode for the links to Chris's work because like you mentioned before, he does these time lapse videos where he shows like the whole layering process, but like scrambled down into like under a minute. And I remember watching the video for that print when it came out, and I was just amazed. And we spoke at the beginning of the show a little bit about how this is a long time in the making, and it was that video that I was like, holy shit, this is like unlike anything I've ever seen in printing. And when I interviewed Isadora, she gave a little tour of her new studio space, and I got to witness one of those machines for the first time, and it's so cool hearing a little bit more about the history of it and how scarce they are and how great it is to see them remaining in operation 60 plus years later and
So
cranking out good work.
here's a little fun story. um I purchased the press from this place down in Muncie, and they they were gonna bring it up for me. They were gonna deliver it for me. And my studio is on the second floor of an old industrial building, and the only way to get it up here is it had to be forklifted up. And so one of my friends that has a forklifted it up through some bay doors on the second floor. Well, when we were moving in, you have to take it the not the long way, but the width way. And so some pieces of wood would go underneath it. Then you put a pallet jack underneath it, and you have to pull it. And it's like 1,800 pounds, right? And it's not thinking very smart of me, but I didn't measure the hallways. So get this: the press is 82 inches wide, The hallways are 82.5 inches wide.
Oh God.
I had a 1/4 inch on each side,
Oh God.
pulling a 16 or 1,800 pound press on a pallet jack down the hallway. I took out part of a wall. I scraped it, just a big mark on the wall because it went a little sideways. And there's three of us pushing this thing because, not one person pulled 1,800 pounds.
But yeah,
And
it's
so,
almost a ton. What do you like?
exactly. And so,
One
we had
person pulling the thing. All right, let's not like. Come on, let's not. I'm not. I
yeah,
wasn't a math teacher, but come on, like let me.
yeah, we had to take the doors off of my studio, to get him through the doors. And I wasn't thinking, I'm like, fuck, it's going to be able to get in. And no, it was really, really tight. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God. And after it was all said and done and put into place where I wanted it, I was thinking to myself, man, if that wouldn't have fit, what would I have done? But it all worked
Yeah,
out the way it was supposed to, right? And it's here and it's being used well and printing almost every single day.
and talk about some of the bands that you've worked with. I mean, Bodhicitta,
Uh,
obviously, but who are
yeah, for sure. And those
some
guys
of
are
the bands?
great.
They really, folks. If you haven't, check them out. Links in the description. Check out
Yeah,
Bodhicitta. They're wild.
we did another poster with them too, with them and Iftikhar, for a show up in like Fond du Lac or something like that. Um, Last year, I think it was. But yeah, but we've been fortunate to work with some really great bands, from local to regional. Like, I mean, I can. There's so many dogs in a pile. Um, Here come the mummies. Old FO. And if you don't know who they are, check them out. They're awesome. Same with this band right here, 13 Monsters.
Oh
They're like
yeah,
they're out of Chicago. They're killer, man. I love them. I was just listening to before we jumped on this call. Yeah, I mean, I got so many. Desmond Jones, Anita Franco, Trey Anastasio. Um, oh, it dropped you there. There we go.
yeah.
There we are.
Secondhand talent, baby. Secondhand talent.
It looks like I mentioned Trey, and all of a sudden the thing falls.
Yeah, yeah.
It's gonna,
I remember when the show started, Trey was doing his like going up to people behind the scene being like, "What are you doing?"
yeah.
And somebody showed it to me and I was like, "Oh, so my only competition is Trey. Great." Like that
Yeah.
that's awesome. Thanks for the why would you show this to me? Like no, that's wild though. When did you do a poster for Trey? That's crazy.
It was 2024. It was a fun phone call to get. Um, in fact, it was crazy. I was asked to do one, and it was actually my daughter's wedding was a show that it was going to be that same night, and so we picked up. We got another one on the tour. I was asked to do a different one instead. Um, and super stoked and just an incredible experience to work with someone um, like Jimmy, um, their art director and merch guy, and all around incredible person. Um, to be able to work with them uh, and the Fish Inc. Was incredible.
I
So
mean, that's just a testament to the web of secondhand talent and how important it is to get or to maintain and sustain those relationships with people in the industry and to, you know, be flexible and work with people and understand and meet clients where they're at.
for sure, yeah, oh yeah. I mean, like I think working with Spafford has been one of my favorites. Um, Man, I love those guys.
They
They're
rule.
yeah, I'm getting ready to see them. They're playing New Year's, the 3 days here in Milwaukee for New Year's, and so getting ready to go over to the shows there and see them.
Maybe I'll come
And
join you for one of them. I don't know.
yeah, I'm gonna probably hit all three. And it's only like a mile and a half from my house, so and my studio, so it's nice and nice and close to
I
be
mean,
able to
it's
get home
only
right
a
after the
mile.
show.
It's only a mile and a half for me crashing at your studio, so it's like
Right?
I mean,
Yeah, for sure, man.
sounds
Hey,
pretty. It sounds pretty convenient. I mean,
listen, you are always welcome here in the studio. I
thank you
got no
very
problem
much.
with that. It's going to be a hard concrete floor, but it's good. You're always welcome here, brother.
Let's not keep rocking with that one. Uh,
So
it
yeah, I
really
mean, it's
is. Yeah. Go. Sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say it's just been incredible, and I feel so honored to work with so many different people and meet so many different artists. Like I just had Brian Bojo here in
Mm,
studio.
one of my
Take a
favorite artists. I'm a
Yeah,
big fan of. I've been asking him to come on the show for a while. Brian, if you're watching, please come be a guest on the show. I'd love to have you
yeah,
on.
Brian. Yeah, Brian was
Um,
in town. I've been friends with Brian for a lot of years. Um, in fact, I did the first time I ever sold a fan art poster in person at a show was with Brian. I shared a table with Brian at Dayton 2017. And
nice.
he took me under his wing and he said, "Hey, listen here, let's go out and sell the posters after the show." And he walked me around. I was so nervous. Like I'd never done that before. And it was cool. And we've been friends since. And I hadn't seen him in many, many years. Actually, since he stayed at my house that weekend. And then I hadn't seen him until now. He was in town for a Green Bay Packer game and reached out and he came to the studio and we hung out here with his son for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Then I took him to the airport. And it was a great experience. I mean, he's a icon in the gig poster world. And to be friends with someone like that, and much like all these different artists, it's an incredible experience to have.
No, absolutely. It's incredible. And echoing the words that you said before, just feelings of, gratitude and feeling blessed to have these people in our circle. Chris, before we end this week's episode, is there any words you'd like to leave us with?
Watch all of the secondhand YouTubes and Instagrams. And if you see Steiner out, give him a high five. And I don't know, man, just smile, smile, smile.
Smile, smile, smile. I don't think we could leave the show on any better words than that. Folks, this is Chris Gill this is Chris from Gilfalo Art Design. I'll fix that in post. And I am Steiner with another episode of Secondhand Talent. And we will see you next Wednesday. And that's a podcast. There we go.